Hello, beautiful artisans. Welcome to part 3 of our little house village of Boro-inspired, Kawandi-inspired. I mean, we've got some sun shining and we're going to bring it to you. So I have been preparing for you a few things. I want to give you a few tips on designing before we go full speed ahead. We are going to sew. We're going to do our Sashiko stitching of the roof today together in real time. So this might take a little time if you want, and it gets monotonous for you, just speed it straight ahead. But I'm doing it that way because, and I chose larger pieces of fabric, so it shouldn't take too long. And but I just want to show you the different ways you can do Boro-Sashiko. So a few of them anyway. So I'm going to put the camera down, and I have my coffee if I need it, and I will probably move it so we don't spill it in a few minutes. However, the last house that we did, I want to show it to you. I may have done a variation of this because I kept picking it up and pieces fell. So this is the bottom part of the house, and I used black thread and then I used orange thread, and I get most of this thread at the thrift shop. This is here anyway in Vermont. This is like readily available, 79 cents. Some of it's gone because the person who donated it used it. But this is the roof. And the roof is a very variegated green, light green to medium and dark green. And then I used for the edging whip stitching. And this is also whip stitching on the edges. Whip stitching in black. Now, for the edging, these are a few tips I want to give you. As you're designing your village, you can use different ways to let's say tighten up your edges. So one is seams. It doesn't have to be jean seams. It could be any kind of seams. Let's say you put your seams just around the edges and sew them onto your piece. I mean, seriously, how adorable is that? And that would be really cutesy. So that's one way to close your edges. Another way is to open them up and pull the threads out and let it fray, creating a fringe all the way around. That's super cute too. The other thing is leave it raw, because then it will fray on its own. And fraying with this type of work, and dear to the authentic method, is that it naturally frays. It's to be expected. So you could let it naturally fray. The other thing is you could do a back, if you wanted to front hem, or you could just do the single or double fold over hems. You could buy them at the store. So you could do that way. Or you could do a blanket stitch around. So there's lots of different ways that you can do your edges. So I wanted to share that with you before we got too far. And but I'm totally loving this little house, I have to tell you. Now, I want to give you one other tip, and then we'll come back to the house for a moment. So another tip is for design with seams, you can you can cut out or use, and this is what I did. I used squares, circles, hearts, but you can create, let's see if I can show you here, little flowers that stand up, and they're maybe almost as big as your house, or they're just a little bird house. I had a bird house in one of mine. It was just simply adorable. So these are other super simple, and you can Sashiko stitch them, put the stitching down here, start practicing how to make it look like a little post, just a few stitches here and there, or do some whip stitching on and off and make it look a little boho, bohemian. style, but these are really cutesy. So I wanted to share that with you before we went too far. And then, so the house, I want to preface this with a story that a customer of mine who comes back to me again and again for some Boro-Sashiko items as gifts asked me, she goes, can you make your Boro-Sashiko like all blue for me, or can you do a green theme for me, or pink? And she gave me all these different colors over the past couple of years. Now, as you see here, what's dear and true to the Authentic Boro is picking fabrics according to what they call like a soulful pick. Just what you think looks, just what you have in front of you, a very humble way of selecting fabrics. And now, and that's what these are. These are all scraps and what I have in front of me. Now, to manipulate it a teeny tiny bit, maybe get a couple little ideas, build up on that a little bit. And this is why we call it Boro inspired. So we're like, okay, well, wait a minute. Now I'm looking for all blue, different blue designs, and green. And that's what the roof is. I went with the roof on this one. And for the bottom part, I wanted the house, this is what we're sewing today, is this roof. So I wanted the bottom part of the house to be a little different from the roof, and I'll put them together so you can see. But this is, I just love this, and this is kind of another tip I want to share with you. Right here, I've been making coasters to go to the Artist Guild, and I need to get them over there. But what I did was I fell in love with this design. I got this rubber stamp for 50 cents at the thrift shop, brand new. And I've been testing it out on fabric. Now you have to use a permanent pigment ink, and so it doesn't run, or if it gets a little wet or whatnot, so it adheres to it naturally. So permanent pigment, and I put it in here with the design, and I just love this design, by the way, of fabrics. So, but if I put the blue roof up to it like that, I mean, look how cute that is. That's just adorable. But this is an idea I wanted to share with you, is that you can design your own fabrics like that too. So I wanted to share, and then what we'll do now is we will get started. Today, what we'll do, because of time wise, I'm going to put the coffee away so we don't spill it. But what we'll do is start sewing this roof, and I just want to sew it. I want to show you with the larger pieces, and these are larger because you see here, I'm trying to find some of the smaller pieces. We used smaller pieces like this. This is much smaller than these, or than the ones we use on the bottom of the house. So these took a little time to sew, because you are being mindful. You have to do your horizontal or vertical or both, and make sure that everything is it's sewed down pretty well. And a good test is to check the back. If the back is missing huge gaps and it doesn't look right to you, then you know, because look, you can see in the back, if I had a space of a couple of inches, I want to go back and get my stitching in there. Now, if I'm purposely leaving a couple of inches, that's okay. Now, so we're going to begin, and I have these pinned down. They may move a little bit. So I'm just going to start in the back. Now we have, this is our backing. That's what we're working on, and this is our top layer, our design. So I'm going to go straight across and around. I'm going to go straight around this roof to adhere, and I always stop like that, so it does take me time to, I'm not going to worry either right now. I'm pushing my needle through. I'm not going to worry about keeping my stitches super duper close together. However, I'm not doing a cantha stitch either, but I'm just going around and letting it kind of naturally, this one, I need a pin here. You want to make yourself comfortable as you get everything in place, because that way you can focus on stitching. And you see I'm doing 2 or 3 at a time. And I'm careful. I made this length of thread just a little bit longer than I normally do. You want it about an arm's length. And if it's longer, it will nest up like that. It will loop up, it will knot up easily, quickly too. So I'm just kind of going along. I'm doing about 3 at a time. Now when you pull it through, if it's not pinned too good, it might start to pull, and then you just want to make sure you place your fabrics back in their space. Now we're almost done with the top row already. Okay, now for me, I turn it like this, so I can, I'm not stretching or trying to figure out how to sew it on an angle. I keep it right in front of me, and that way, and I go slow. Now this is the authentic meditative type of stitching. Boro inspired, Kawandi inspired, Cantha, and there's many others out there. I just don't, they don't fall under a general name. They have their own name, their own methods, their own way, but however, you do find the commonality that they're meditative. That, like, you just get into the zone. So, and time flies. It really does. So now I always take a look a little bit under there where I'm at, because I'm on my edge, and I want to stay on my edge as close as possible. Now you see how the thread is going through just even a little bit easier since I use some. That's because of the length. The shorter it is, the better. I mean, at least an arm's length. And we don't use hoops. You see how the thread, you can see when I'm threading it, how I'm working with the fabric. I'm moving right along in a rhythm here, and doing these several stitches at a time is not conducive anyway to using a hoop. But like I said, there's many variations of stitching, so you can mix methods and have a lot of fun. So now look, we're on this last edge of it already, and that's because the piece isn't huge. It's not a big piece at all. It's about 7 inches by, I would say, 4. This is about 7 by 4. I didn't measure it, but I know the size because I make coin bags about this size. And now here's Here's an example. You're going to see the base is showing. That's okay, because it won't show in about 2 seconds. You pull it through, and even though the fabric is lifting, just place the fabric in its place, get those stitches nice and secure, and check it out, make sure everything's covered, and then you continue. So now I am up here. So now I want to start a second row, and what I'm going to do, so there's different ways you can do this. You can bring this to the back if you want, like do a little stitch and go to the back, and then come up if you want to stay consistent with your rows. And let's say you want to do a horizontal row, you can go straight across, or you want to do vertical, you can go up and down. Now, even with Boro inspired, you can go around just like in Kawandi. You can do that. So there's different ways that you can do this. So we're going to kind of get it parallel to the second stitch down, and I'm going to go straight across because I got just enough thread, I believe, to do that. So I'm going to again put this parallel to me, so it's a little easier for me to work with. And I'm going to remove that pin because that is definitely going to be in my way. So again, you see your fabric lifted a little bit. That's okay. You just straighten everything out. And when you get a few more of these stitches in, and these are basically down like that a little bit, then you start to really see it coming together. You see it starting to adhere. You start really having fun focusing on your design a little bit more. It's like you don't have to stop and make sure that your fabrics are in place. Look, that just popped off of the needle, so we're going to put that back on. And this is why I did a second needle, because if it takes too long for the video here, I'll just grab my second needle, because sometimes it sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. So we're gonna, for the sake of moving along, I'll grab my second needle and we'll keep going. Because we all know that sometimes the needle will have a mind of its own. So I'm going to take that pin out and we'll continue. And here, if you come to the point where you have fabric and this, and you're like, oh man, I don't want to make that stitch super long, you can always make it a little shorter and come up. And then when you're double checking everything, if you think it needs another stitch. Now here, there's no rule that says you can't back stitch if you want to catch that and just make sure it's stitched. It's not going to hurt anything. It's a very slight variation in the look of stitches. That was a back stitch. I just went backwards, and I just caught the fabric to make sure that it adheres with the sewing. And look how beautiful that's beginning to look. We have one needle over here Now I'm leaving it in because this is still floppy, and that's probably a little floppy. I'm going to actually just kind of get those together until I get over there. Okay, so let's say I just want to focus on my rows and I don't want any stitches being seen here. I'm just focusing on those rows. So what I will do is I will do another stitch. It will get me to the back of my work. And so I'm going to, now I'm eyeing this, but I want to go down another couple of stitches. And so I'm going to do that from the back. And then I'm going to, so that's how that looks. I will get this off later, but that's how that looks. Okay, and then we continue, move this a little closer. We'll continue to go back the other way. My other needle went through much easier. That was my go-to needle, but that's okay. This is working beautifully, really. Now, this needle came up, the thread came up, I got through okay, and look, it came up right in the middle of two pieces of fabric. That's okay. All I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little back stitch. I am going to do a back stitch. I don't have to do a back stitch. I could go forward, but I figure if I do that back stitch, that's okay. Then I can, so that's my back stitch. I don't know if you can see that. It's very tiny, but I'm going to come up right before that back stitch, and I'm going to catch. Now you don't have to do this. You can just, if you could just continue stitching, this all works out beautifully. I'm only doing it just to show you some tips, just so you can catch your fabrics, and it's just a couple of little tips, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. You can certainly do that. It's all part of your visible stitching. It's just helping you as you go along, just introducing you to that little back stitch. Now, the other thing you could do is, and we're going to do that on this village, is we're going to do some little houses in all seed stitching. I love seed stitching. And I feel like it goes quicker because the stitches are going sporadically around. So now we're going to scoot down a couple of stitches again. And you see here in the back, let me show you the back. So we've got a pretty good spacing. We're trying to keep our spacing. And so we're going to scoot down and we're going to come up through the back and work our way across. I just love this as it's coming together. This is beautiful. This is really nice. And if there's certain stitches you want to know, let me know. If I'm not familiar with it, I'll familiarize myself with it and see if I can walk you through it. because knowing the stitches makes it a little easier to learn new stitches. But once you're there, in my opinion, it seems as though you get comfortable with certain stitches for a while, and you work with those and get orientated to whatever projects you're working on. And that's practice. That's the practice part of it. So, okay. That is our Boro going horizontally like that. Now, let's say I want to go up. I want to now, I've got all my horizontal, and now I want to do some verticals. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to work from the back, and after you do all your stitching, you see how this is kind of hanging over like that, then you clip it. And I say wait till you get your stitches in, because sometimes as the fabric is pulling in, these will inch out again. And this is just from experience. If it inches out and you're trying, and it's close, and you're trying to get it, you end up sometimes cutting your base, and then, oh goodness, one thing, you know what? It's like cutting your bangs. One thing leads to another. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to look down here at our bottom, and I'm going to start here. So, and it's okay that you have some of this coming across. Now, if you're not comfortable with that, that's okay. You can cut it and knot it, and just make sure you're leaving a good amount of this thread, so it's not a teeny little knot that undoes itself over time. Make sure you leave enough, but you can certainly scoot right over there. And now here we are, and again, I face this towards me, it's most comfortable, and you see me holding this in my hand. I sometimes would put it down on the table. I did that a lot to show you, but it is, I mean, and you can, but it is, in my opinion, it feels more comfortable in my hand. So, and I have figured out to tip this camera so you can see that. So, we're going to go right up here. And there we got like 4 stitches in. Got 4. Okay, and we're at the top already. Here's the top already, okay? So we're going to make a small stitch to get us to the back, and then we're going to come from the back. We're going to go, I'll put that down for a moment. We're going over again a couple of stitches, and we're going to come out through here. Now, if you go through and you're like, you stitch the whole row and you're like, oh my gosh, that's not even. The thing I love about Sashiko stitching is you can add rows, or if you truly do want to take that row out, it is not a difficult thing to do. You're pretty much, you know, gonna be okay. You can leave it and just add some rows to balance out if that's what you're trying to do. Look how adorable that is. That's just so cute. Now, as you're going along, I'm not doing this, but you could do this. As you're going along, when you sew, if you want, you get down here, you'll get in a rhythm of it, but you can certainly do a whip stitch here, you could do a blanket stitch, you can do whatever you want. I'm not doing that, and I'll tell you why. I can never figure out, I can never make up my mind till I'm at the very end of the piece. Okay, so now, whoops, now we're going to, what I do to knot it in the back is sometimes I just knot it, or sometimes I just put the needle through to knot it like that, and through a few stitches. I want some length to this, so I'm not going to cut. I'm going to leave it pretty much at a good length. I might take a tiny bit off there. So this is how you do your Boro stitching, and you would just continue like that, going straight across. Now, if there is more that you need to know from this video, and you want me to focus on certain aspects of the particular Boro inspired, let me know. And so the next video, I don't know, I'm going to play around and keep creating here, but I think it's important to do a kawandi stitching. And even though it sounds like super easy, I'll just kind of go around. People tend to have questions on how to get around the corners. But it's pretty much, it's not difficult, and but it does help people to see it. So that's kind of my plan for the next video. And now that I'm back to this project here, I'm going to be focusing on this and kind of getting these videos out so we can finish up our beautiful little village. So we're going to let this video stay up for at least the next several days, and then I'll come back with the kawandi. So if you have any questions, you let me know, and I appreciate you, and I hope that all of you have a wonderful, beautiful weekend, and I'll see you shortly.